Ụmụnne m ndị Igbo, ụmụnne m ndị Enuani nọ n'ụwa niile, eji m oge na-ekene ọnụ si ụnụ ụtụtụ ọma, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're seeing my video from. This is Enuani Cultural Forum, and today we are looking at a very interesting topic, a topic that touches on how Ndi Igbo resisted the British Nigerian government during the early days of colonization, our first European contact, how the resistance and defiance of Ndi Igbo became global knowledge, how the world got to know that Ndi Igbo in Nigeria are not people you can push around. I'm going to not just make this about myself, but I'm going to make this about intellectuals. It is an intellectual topic, and therefore, good morning, my brother who is watching from Switzerland. This is an international topic, so it is going to be a topic whereby we will employ every academic means to make it an intellectual discussion. Of course, it is an intellectual discussion. So we're going to have an intellectual engagement. I have two books with me. I have the book called Igbo Land, A Century of Contact with the Europeans. A Century of European Contact. Igbo Land, A Century of European Contact. That is a book written by our brother, Professor S.N. Wabara. And then another book called The Story of Obolo Kingdom, a historical documentary of Obolo people. With these two books, we're going to look at the resistance of Ndi Igbo against the Europeans. We're going to focus on the Igbo axis of Asaba and other Enuani communities. I am beginning here with what they called Asaba Onitsha expedition. Now, a lot of people, when they hear about the British expeditions in Nigeria, they usually think of Benin expedition of 1897, of the punitive expedition. They never know that before the punitive expedition of Benin, these people had already touched base at Igbo land, but they were not able to conquer Ndi Igbo. Even if it took just less than 4 days to subdue Benin and dethrone the Oba of Oranwen, it took 32 years plus before they were able to subdue Ndi Igbo. Let's dive into this. And then after this live broadcast, I'm going to make a video, okay, so that everything can be balanced, where you can watch this exclusively and even read from the books I'm using. I'm reading now from a book written by Professor S.N. Wabara, Igbo Land, A Century of Contact. Asaba Expedition. The Asaba Expedition, the Asaba Onitsha Expedition, was one of the few cases where the term pacification could partly apply, because in each case, the aim was to destroy a secret society or an oracle that constituted a terror and danger not only to the foreigners but also to the natives. Resistance by the members of the society, therefore, was, as in the Umunoha case, economically and selfishly motivated. Information had reached W.F. Forsbury, Provisional Commissioner of the Eastern Province, that the towns of Ogwasi and Onitsha Olona were centers of resistance and the headquarters of the Ekumeku Society. Thus, on the authorization of the High Commissioner of the Southern Nigeria, the following force left the hinterland on 1st of December 1902. Now, I want to clarify something here. These two places mentioned, Ogwashi and Onicholona, are sub-headquarters of Ekumeku Resistance. The actual headquarters of Ekumeku Resistance was not mentioned here, probably because of the reason Ekumeku. Everybody was sworn to an oath not to reveal where the headquarters is. So I am not surprised here reading that the information that went out is that the headquarters is in Ogwashi and Onicholona. Actually, the headquarters is in a place I will later mention. Just continue watching this video. You will find out where the true headquarters of Ekumeku is. That headquarters of Ekumeku is still there till date, and it is still a virgin forest. So let's continue this reading. Now they have decided to dispatch an army to Igbo land part of Asaba and Ogwashi. This time they are targeting Awashuku and Onicholona under the Asaba division. The commanding officer of this particular expedition is Major Morehouse. He had with him 1 medium machine gun, a Lieutenant Boardman Wetham, 10 gunners, and 31 enlisted gun carriers. Now, a company Southern Nigeria regiment also went with them. They had with them Captain Beverly, Lieutenant Whitehead, Lieutenant Daniels, Sergeant Moore, 79 rank and field, and 1 Maxim. Now, the third group that went with them is a company Southern Nigerian regiment again. They went with Captain Kare, Lieutenant Matters, 79 rank and file, and 1 Maxim with 2004 carriers, gun carriers. On 2nd December, the force reached Akuku and halted before the day. A message was sent to the chief of Onicholona that the force was proceeding to their town the following day and would require food and water. They replied that 3 out of the 6 villages that comprised Onicholona were willing to comply, but that the rest refused and would have nothing to do with the force. On arrival in the town, the column camped in the market square, and at 4 p.m., the commanding officer, together with 4 sections, marched to the 2 most turbulent quarters, Ihobi and Olo. In the latter place, the people offered resistance, that is in Olo. As the column approached the town of Ezi, all these are in Anyocha North local government area of Delta State. As the column approached the town of Ezi, it was gathered by a message from the chief desiring to meet with the commanding officer, but not long after, a hostile message followed from the town that the chief had fled into the bush, perhaps in fear of his people, who might have accused him of compromise. He, however, reappeared with some leading men of the town. For the talks with the commanding officer, now, the chief ran away in Onicholona, fearing. Now, the people they regard as chief are usually the kings of that community, although Onicholona particularly does not have a king. All right, what they have was chiefs. In this particular instance, they said the chiefs ran away into the bush for fear of his people, who are accusing him that he has compromised, that he has sold out. He has now aligned himself with the Europeans. His community people are accusing him, so the chief ran away and later reappeared again for the talks. For the AZ people, the meeting was a means of not only gaining time, but also of learning the position of government soldiers. Because of the intelligence received soon after by the commanding officer, an attack was launched by the government forces later in the day. This attack met considerably more opposition than had been anticipated. However, by late afternoon, the resistance had awakened and the town was burned down. The town of Az was burned down by the British. This is a colonial document that I'm reading. I'm not reading my own works. This is the works documented by Professor S.N. Nwabara, late. Now, they said the town of Ezi was later burned down that day. The town of Ezi is located in Anyocha North local government area of Delta State. Okay? So, let's continue. This attack met considerably more opposition than had been anticipated. However, by late afternoon, the resistance had weakened and the town was burned down. As the column was returning to camp, the AZ people opened fire again, wounding 3 soldiers. It was not possible to retaliate because the AZ were firing from the safety of the bush. On the 6th of December, the head men of the different villages were said to have made overtures of peace and asked for a 2-day truce to allow for surrender of the chiefs. While the fighting was in progress at AZ, a meeting, the purpose of which was not stated, was held near the marketplace between the representatives of those quarters friendly to the government and 3 leaders of the Ekumeku society. When informed of the meeting, the district commissioner sent scouts to track down the and capture the 3 soldiers, the 3 leaders. This was done and they were sentenced to banishment from the town. We are talking about the town of Ezi. The 3 community leaders who went to seek peace and make peace with the British forces were tracked down to their houses, arrested, and banished from the town of Ezi. These are colonial documents. And I'm very glad that the British government here is referring to Ezi community as an Igbo town. All right? Now, I want us, by the end of this intellectual engagement, to find out why these places are regarded as Igbo communities. And how later on, I don't understand how these people now started denying their Igbo origins. I don't understand. But let's continue. That's not the topic of this particular video. No sooner had the sentence been pronounced than one of the leaders, Dunku, cut himself loose from his guards and escaped into the bush. Apparently, he had not been disarmed, for the constable who made an unsuccessful attempt to catch him received a machete wound. Interesting. He surrendered eventually. The next destination was Awash, but now we are finished at Ezi. Remember I told you, Ezi, Opale Nezi Chime, is the origin of the name Ezi. Ezi is one of the sons of Ezechima, a returning Igbo who spent most of his life in Ado and then Benin, that is Idu, before he returned homewards and finally settled at Obio, where he died. Ezechima is the father of all Ezechima communities in Ezechima clan, including Obio, Iseluku, Onichubo, Onicholona, Obompa, Onochamili, Oguta, and so many of them that are returning Igbos, not Bini people, as some people will wrongly assume. They will say they are Bini people. After all, they are using Ada and Eben. That doesn't define their origin. It was just influenced. Their origin is as Ndi Igbo, as they are the sons of Ezechima. We have now finished with Ezi community, where the fighting happened. Where the first shot was fired, you will later get to find out as well. Okay, I don't want to give up everything now, but let's continue. We are reading a colonial account written by the British themselves, documented in their gazettes, and then published by Professor S.N. Nwabara, a renowned historian. We have now moved, the resistance has now moved from Ezi to Awashuku after capturing Dunku in Ezi. Dunku is one of the Ekumeku warriors who was captured in Ezi, and I said Ezi is an Ezechima community in Anyocha North local government area of Delta State, no more than 5 minutes drive from Iseluku. Now the next destination was Ogwashi on the 16th of December. You remember the year we are dealing with now is the year, because we have to be very certain of what we are reading out so that you can be carried along. We are dealing with the year 1902. Okay? We are dealing with the year 1902. We are in the year 1902. So the document we are reading are things that happened in the year 1902. So on the 16th of December 1902, the main column of the army entered Iseluku. On the 16th of December 1902, the main column of the army entered Iseluku. On the 18th, they reached Awashuku. Something is missing here, okay? That thing missing is that there's a community between Iseluku and Awashuku. That community was avoided for a reason. You will know that community later as well, and why it was avoided, because it's a no-go area. That community that was avoided is a no-go area. So how this contingent moved from Iseluku and found themselves in Awashuku without assessing that community is what still remains a mystery in this documentation. So something is missing here. How you moved from Ogwash and landed, how you moved from Ezi to Iseluku and then landed in Ogwash without documenting what happened in Ubuluku, the headquarters of Ekumeku. The actual headquarters of Ekumeku is Ubuluku. So how did you move from Iseluku to Ogwash without touching base at Ubuluku? Okay, so we continue. This is to show that the British themselves can also be very cunning. Okay? On the 18th, they reached Ogwash. There's 2 days journey from Iseluku to Ogwash. As a friendly gesture, the chief invited the force to camp at Awashuku, his headquarters, as in the Ezi incident. The people were opposed to the friendly attitude of their chief towards the soldiers and therefore refused to provide food and water. Furthermore, the other chiefs of the area refused to have a meeting with the divisional commissioner. Left with no alternative, the column marched to the Obo and Obobo villages, destroying everything before them. The only real resistance of the day was encountered at Opoma, where the inhabitants fired continually at the column as a reprisal to the town. The town was razed almost to the ground. The town of Awashuku was razed almost to the ground. Particularly now they are talking about Obobo in Awashuku. The Obobo and Obo villages of Awashuku were razed down to the ground by the British. Okay, please, this is discussing the Ekumeku Colonial Resistance by Igbo people of Enuani. If you are just seeing this video, kindly give it a thumbs up, double tap on the video to like it, and please share to your audience. Invite so many people as much as you can to come and watch this video and make contributions. We are reading a colonial document put down by the British missionaries themselves and the colonial government of British Nigeria, and published by Professor S.N. Wabara. I've been able to access this book by being part of a library, a global library, where I was able to access the book. So I'm bringing it to you firsthand, because I said this is an intellectual platform. It is not a place where we just offer opinions. We also read out intellectual-based articles to you. So they said the town of Awashuku now has been burned down to the ground because of the resistance that they showed. In addition to destroying property, the government force made every effort to capture the leaders of the Ekumeku society in Ogwashi. And by 24 December, 6 of the men gave themselves up to the divisional commissioner. The surrender of the men appeared to weaken further resistance, And so, for 5 days, the British force marched unopposed throughout the Awashuku villages. As the fate of the chiefs, most of whom were leaders of Ekumeku society, the High Commissioner of Southern Nigeria wrote in a dispatch to the Secretary of the Colonial saying, several of the dissatisfied chiefs have been removed from the district, and I am taking some of them to Old Calabar for a period where they will have an opportunity of seeing a more advanced state of civilization than exists in their own country, which on their return they may introduce among their own people. Now, some of the chiefs from Awashuku have now been captured. Those who also surrendered by themselves have now been exiled to Calabar. And the district commissioner is writing to the colonial head in Lagos saying that this is the action he is taking, exiling some chiefs from Awashuku and Igbo town to Calabar. Kindly double tap on this video to give it thumbs up. If you're seeing it, we have 36 people actively watching. Please double tap on this video to give it a thumbs up. Help it to rank well on the algorithm so that more people can get to see these facts that we are reeling out. Some people, when we say these things, say it is revisionism. This is not revisionism. This is a colonial document written in 1902, and I'm just reading it out to you freely. Kindly double tap on the video to give it thumbs up, okay? Whenever the chiefs feel the hopes of the High Commissioner will be judged in the light of consequent events, now, they are saying whether the chiefs feel the hopes of the High Commissioner or not, or they are not saying the truth, it will be judged in the light of subsequent events. This is very correct, because they have not really captured the main person that I am looking out to hear his name in Awashuku. There's a main person in Awashuku who was the leader of Ekumeku Resistance. His name was Nzekwe. I am waiting to see his name in this document, and I have not. They are just stating here that most of the leaders of the resistance have surrendered, and I have not seen Nzekwe here. Nzekwe did not just surrender. So let me just read. Let me continue reading. The real objective of the Asaba expedition, the suspension of the Ekumeku society, was not successful. Apart from the arrest and subsequent banishment of some of its leaders, the society continued to be a problem and was described as an anti-European club, which had long been a source of frequent trouble to the government, the Royal Niger Company, and the Christian missions. Its aim were said to be: 1. The abolition of white man and all favorable, the abolition of the white man and all favorably disposed towards him, and the substitution of themselves as the government of the country. 2. The murder of all native Christians who would not renounce Christianity and swear loyalty to the Ekumeku society. This is like the olden days version of people who resist colonialism. They were against anything European. They were against anything Christianity. So even their own people who had become Christians are enemies to them. This is the Ekumeku. This is the rules of being a member of the Ekumeku society. Because they believed, Oyibona, the whites should go. They don't want anything to do with the Europeans. This is the first point of hatred for Igbo. 1902. In the year 1902, all Europeans have been informed that there's a group in Igbo land called Ekumeku who are against any European country. They call them anti-European club. Now they are in their homeland for clarity's sake. These people are in their homeland. They are civilized. They make weapons. They feed. They make artworks. They do all kinds of things by themselves. And then somebody brings war to them. Somebody brings trouble to them. Somebody tries to topple their government. Somebody brings a new religion to them. And they are resisting it. And you see them as barbarians. Who is the real barbarian? You left your country to my country, brought war upon me. Then I am the bad person. You are the good person. This is just what the European government did to Africa, exemplified in what is happening in this part of Igbo land. I'll continue reading and stop offering my opinions, okay, so that it doesn't get boring. That the society had not been altogether suppressed in 1903 became apparent in 1904 when it was forced into an open rebellion by the corrupt nature of the native court. The district commissioner at Asaba was unable to investigate the circumstances leading to the 1904 rebellion because the members of the society refused to meet him and the divisional commissioner to try to settle the matter peacefully. The society made an arbitrary move by attacking indigenous Christians at Idumujona. Now, I know they mean Idumujona. The members of Ekumeku society had attacked indigenous Christians in Idumujona because they felt these indigenous Christians were the ones giving out information about them to the British government. Okay? On 16th January 1904 was when this happened. Similar attacks were made on the church missionary stations at Onitsha and at Omega. Wow. These people are mentioning totally pure Enuani societies and communities. Idumujono is very close to Atomega. Okay? The Roman Catholic Mission houses at Ezi and the government court houses at Onitsha and Ubuluku were destroyed. Now, this is the first time of mentioning the real place, Ubuluku. The attacks reached a climax with the murder and ill treatment of chiefs who were well disposed towards the government and some native Christians. Now, chiefs who were giving out information to the government or who were seen as being friendly with the government became enemies of members of the Ekumeku society. I don't want to relate this to what is happening presently in the northern part of Nigeria, where you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to relate it because they are unrelatable. Now, these are people who were living in their community, a very peaceful community, a very nice and calm people, a very peace-loving people, a very hospitable people, suddenly met Europeans who want to dominate them, impose Christianity on them, call their culture barbaric, destroy their shrines. The war against the Ekumeku people was not just war against people. It was war against our deities as well, as you saw in Onitsha axis. They believed some of the deities were favoring Ekumeku, so they were attacking deities as well. And these were our religious centers, the things that our people hold or held very sacred. So it became a problem. It got to the stage where if you see any Enuani person, any Igbo person supporting Europeans anymore, that Igbo person, despite the fact that they are our brothers or our sisters, became enemies to Ekumeku members. That is what is stated here. So I'll have to continue reading, but they have just told us that the courts in Ubuluku, Onitsha, Ezi, and the rest and Atoma were destroyed by Ekumeku members. I wanted to say I support that as if I was there. The attacks reached a climax, okay, with the murder and ill treatment of chiefs who were well disposed towards the government and some native Christians. At Idumujuboko, the Reverend Edward Dennis of the Church Missionary Society was warned in time by native Christians and so escaped, as did the Roman Catholic fathers stationed at Asaba, who were visiting at Iseluku. The timely arrival of both Mr. H.R. Crawford, the divisional commissioner, and J. Davidson, the assistant district commissioner, with a small force of soldiers and police, saved the mission station at Iseluku from destruction. Now you see what they were talking about, that there were indigenous people giving information to the government. This is what laid out here. They had already laid ambush for Crawford and some of them, Reverend Father Edward Davids, who was visiting Iseluku, but the indigenous Christians sent a message to them that you should escape. Oh, these people are coming. Oh. This is the reason why the members of Ekumeku were angry and were also attacking their own fellow Igbo brothers and sisters, Enuani people, who were giving out information to the government. This is just like what you see in movies, but it is playing out here real. Okay? Now I have to continue. They said now that they got some reinforcement and were able to escape because indigenous Christians had given them information to escape. The expedition under Captain Iron Hog arrived at Iseluku on 18th of January. We have now moved from December to January. They are still fighting. I remember I told you that it took 4 days to capture the Oba of Benin and send him away to Calabar. Now we are discussing war that is actively being fought from December. We are now in January, and today is January 18. They are looking at January 18, 1905 now. It should be 1905 because it was 1904. The following information. The expedition under Captain Iron Hog arrived Iseluku on 18 January, and following information that the Ekumeku forces were positioned in 2 areas of the district, one at Ubuluku, west of Iseluku, and the other at Akuku, east of Onitsha. He developed his column accordingly. Now they are mentioning Ubuluku now actively because that is where the headquarters of Ekumeku is. The battle, which lasted until 12th of March, which is about 3 months, started in January, February, March, 3 months of actively fighting around Ubuluku and Iseluku, resulted in heavy casualties on both sides. Despite the severe opposition, the government force reportedly captured about 250 persons who were supposed to be leaders of the Ekumeku society. Now, after the resistance of 3 months at Ubuluku Iseluku axis, 250 people who were believed to be loyal to the Ekumeku fighters, who were believed to be Ekumeku warriors, were captured. To ensure permanent peace, some of the captured leaders were removed to an unknown destination, and heavy fines were imposed on the 29 villages that had found and fought on the side of the Ekumeku society. The punishment was considered a blow to the existence of the society, but whether it was a death or death blow that had been inflicted was yet to be known. However, the native courts that occasioned the rising were suspended. The native courts that caused all this, because what caused all this was injustice, corruption. The native courts were giving out judgments that the people were seeing as oppression and intimidation. Somebody does something to me, you brought a court. I report that into your court and I couldn't get justice. That was how this resistance against the British government started. And it was started by Ndi Igbo. Now, this will tell you 2 things. It is not today that Ndi Igbo started defiance. And some people try to credit it to Ekumeku people. Some people try to credit it to Anioma people. This is not Anioma people. They have not mentioned anywhere outside Enuani here. All what I'm reading here is centered towards Onitsha, Asaba, Ubuluku, Iseluku. These are Enuani communities of Igbo land. I'm not saying it is not Anioma, it is Anioma, but where in Anioma? Because when you see people laying claim to things and trying to use it to discredit Ndi Igbo, I laugh at them, at their ignorance. When you say Anioma, you're talking Ika, you're talking Okwani, and you're talking Enuani. And what we are reading here is purely Enuani and other side of Igbo land, which is Onitsha. For this document I'm reading is not by ourselves. It is by the government themselves of Europeans. It is by the British colonial government. They are the ones who put this down. So I'm going to read now a continuation, which is the death of O.S. Curid. Who Curid is, you will know now. What led to his death, you will also know. If you are just seeing this video, this is my first time because people have been sending me messages to say, discuss Ekumeku Resistance. I say, if I discuss Ekumeku Resistance, It's like a big elephant. You only draw it from the angle you're seeing it from. If I am to talk about Ekumeku, I'll be talking Ubuluku, 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 Awashuku, because that is my axis. That is the place I am from. That is where their story is very conversant to me. But I am reading it now from a government colonial document written by the British themselves. It is going to be biased towards the British, if there is any bias, not biased towards me. Thank you so much, my brother. Please, if you're just seeing this video, double tap on it to give it thumbs up. Also share to your audience. Let so many people come and watch and find out how the hatred for Igbo by the Europeans, I'm not saying by the British, started, because the British painted us like people who formed an association. They called it a camp, an anti-European organization is what they called Ekumeku. They didn't say it is a resistant organization, an organization that is trying to resist colonialism. They said no, it is an organization set up by Igbo to resist the Europeans. That way, France will join, Spain will join, England will join, Italy will join, Germany will join, all of them will join forces to fight against Igbo. This is what British did to Igbo. And this is 1902 that I'm reading its document. I'm not reading a document of yesterday. 1902 is how many years old now? 1902 is how many years ago? Such a very long time ago that these people have documented things to say, if you see these people, fight them because they don't like you. But all we were trying to do was defend our land, not really resist the Europeans, but defend our land, defend our culture, defend our religion. That is what we are still trying to do till today. So I'm going to read about what they documented about the death of Curid. Curid is spelled Crewe-READ. That is the man's name, Curid. On 19th of June, 1906, the Ekumeku Society was in the news again. In connection with the killing of O.S. Curid, District Commissioner Curid, together with an escort of 53 men, was on a visit to Ute, a town in the Abo district, and had halted for the day in Owa. Oh, God of mercy. This is so good. I'm so glad that I was able to get a hands on this document that I'm reading. Look at what I'm reading from. Later I will share it as a document so that you can also read along with me. Okay? Now, Curid is the district commissioner. That's what we have just learned. And he was traveling with 50 armed men. 53 armed men as escort. He was going to Ute and he was ambushed at Owa. Owa is the hometown of Ifeanyi Okowa. And I'm glad he has come out on national television severally to say he's an Igbo man. Otherwise, this would have exposed him further. This is happening in his hometown, Owa. Okay? Now, it is in the Abo area. The town looked deserted, except for 2 men who were sent by Curid to summon the rest of the men in the town. The 2 returned late in the evening to report that the people refused to see him. And not long after, the police on guard were fired at and seriously wounded. As the state of affairs worsened, 2 policemen were sent to Abo to do a telegram. Now they are going to call for backup. 2 policemen were now dispatched to go to Abo with telegrams to the commanding officer requesting assistance. They had traveled no more than a kilometer when they were stopped by the natives and the telegrams were snatched from them. They barely escaped with their lives with such a small force and no hope of immediate relief. Curid started back for Abo on 9th of June 1906, but was ambushed at a place not far from the town of Owa Lisimini. There he received 2 fatal gunshot wounds, and his small escort scattered into the bush for safety. On receiving the news, headquarters sent an army under Captain Rudikin to Abo to punish the killers. But in an encounter with the natives of Abo, 2 European officers sustained serious wounds. 2 soldiers were killed and 26 wounded. A reinforcement under Captain Whaling, one of the commanders, was engaged at Ute by the people and pinned there for 56 hours until relieved by a section from Rudkin's column. The intention of Ute people to rout the invaders was revealed by the fact that 30% of the 280 men in the relieving column suffered casualties. The position of the force was thought to be so critical that the Northern Nigeria regiment was warned to hold 2 companies in readiness. Now they had to bring reinforcement from Northern Nigeria in 2 regiments. You see what I'm saying? They had to bring reinforcement in 2 regiments from Northern Nigeria to resist this area in Abo. Precisely Ute. Ute is just trackable from Ubuluku. A section of the column managed to reach Owa and did not encounter opposition immediately, and was therefore able to search for the body of Curid, which was found buried in the bush between the spot where he was killed and the town. It was exhumed and removed to Benin for burial. Now, by this time, Benin had been captured, but the Igbo people in this part of Igbo land, Western Igbo land, continued to fight. Remember, Benin was captured in 1897 in just 4 days, but the Igbo continued to fight. This is 1906, 9 years after Benin was captured. Benin was captured in 1897. This is 1906. Ndị Igbo were still fighting. They have now been able to successfully recover the body of Curid, who is the district commissioner, and they are transporting him to Benin for proper funeral, or maybe they will send him back to his home country. The battle that followed ended in the capture of the chiefs of Owa, Igbonoba, Iyibo, Ukute 1, Ukute 2, Ikaria, Ukeneme, Echenim, Tete, Ijoma, on the 26th of September 1906. Look at the list of people they mentioned. They mentioned human beings. Somebody can go to Owa now and find the families of these people that they mentioned, the chiefs who were captured, relating to the death of Curid. And when you hear them talking about the Ekumeku Resistance, they mention names that I don't even know. Names that I have not found here. These are the people who were attacked. They are telling you the names of the people who attacked them. This is British document, not my own, not our own. But our own, it could have been manipulated. This is them telling us now about what we did to them. They mentioned about 7 names here of the people of Owa that attacked them on the 26th of September 1906. These men were found guilty of murder and sentenced to execution by the judge of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, JMM Dunlop. So these names I mentioned here were executed. They died for the cause of Ekumeku, and they are from Owa. And they were sentenced to death by the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, Justice JMM Dunlop. Now, as might be expected, the circumstances leading to the death of Curid and the trial and execution of the alleged murders re-echoed beyond Nigeria. As I said now, that's the aim. Their aim is to spread this message to the whole world, that Ndi Igbo do not want to see the Europeans. Therefore, the European countries will have a mutual hatred, an agreed hatred against Ndi Igbo. That is the plan. It is a propaganda. It was planned long time ago. When you hear people saying Nigeria government doesn't like Ndi Igbo, it is an understatement. The people who founded Nigeria do not like Ndi Igbo. How much more the Nigerian government? These are the people who founded Nigeria, spreading a propaganda to the world that there is an association of an organization founded by Ndi Igbo that is against Europeans, not against British. Europeans did not come to our place. Portuguese came and left. But what we have is the British. But the British is successfully spreading the information in 1906 that we have an association that is strictly designed to attack and fight anything European. Not anything Europe, not anything British, but anything European. So if France were to have good intention, they will not come because they believe these people have an organization that will attack them. Italy, Germany, Spain, all of them will not come because they believe we will attack them. Therefore, British did this to Ndi Igbo on the account of what Western Igbos brought. When we are saying that the sufferings of Ndi Igbo started in the hands of Western Igbos, people think we are joking. This is British documents exposing the same fact. If you are seeing this video and you think what we are doing is worth appreciating, you can support us by sharing this video, double tapping on the video to like it, dropping a comment. Is a question, is anything you want to call out, anything you want to contribute. You can even give us super thanks if you can. But any of this is enough support for what we are doing, okay? So, in continuation, as might be expected, the circumstances leading to the death of Curid and the trial and execution of the alleged murderers re-echoed beyond Nigeria. For instance, the government of southern Nigeria used the opportunity to blame the murder on the Ekumeku society and described it as anti-white man. Does this not surprise you? In 1906, the government of northern Nigeria was blaming Ndi Igbo for the murder of Curid, and he's saying that the government is anti-white man. Anti-white man. We don't want to see white man. The same script, a playbook handed over to them to say, read this. Otherwise, who gave them that idea? They were not in southern Nigeria. How did the northern Nigerian government get to know and start spreading the message that southern Nigerian government of Ndi Igbo are against the white man? Not that we are against British for trying to usurp our culture, for trying to impose a religion on us, but that we are against white man. So we don't want to see white man. Okay, no problem. That is their interpretation. We can't interpret for them. But we have to continue. Both local and international reaction to the incident differed from what the government. Okay, let me read again. Both local and foreign reaction to the incident differed from that of the government. For example, West Africa, a weekly newspaper, attributed the outburst and eventual murder of Curid to the manner in which the dignity and influence of native chiefs was lowered by government administrators. I like journalism. Look at the beautiful work these journalists did. Not putting the blame on the locals, but the blame on Curid, who was high-handed, who has also reduced our chiefs to ordinary people. Okay? That is what this newspaper reported. It cited instances, the newspaper cited instances, where chiefs were flogged openly before their subjects for trifling offenses. Among these were the cases of the chief of Abo, who failed to attend the court when Curid was in the district, the chief of Abavo, who did not order his people to clear a public road, and the chief of Onichubo, who failed to provide water and food. In a catalogue of misdeeds, the paper exposed the high-handedness of Curid's administration and concluded that the attack on him was as the result of the people's pent-up rage, which had long been waiting for an opportunity to vent itself, and the call to arms to free themselves from a rule they had long felt to be oppressive was readily responded to. The Lagos Standard, a Lagos newspaper, was equally critical of the government over the incident. It accused the government of being ignorant of the state of affairs in the Abo district and therefore guilty of an act of criminal indifference, it concluded. Now, a quote from the paper says, the disturbance in the Abo district is only a recrudescence of that form of unrest, which is the outcome of the youth and inexperience of men placed in the authority, entrusted with almost unlimited power, and left to themselves without any guiding or controlling influence to check the waywardness of their conduct. This is referring to Curid, who it is believed here or reported here, the British government gave absolute power in the district. So he was flogging chiefs, flogged the chief of Abo. When the people they call chief here are the Obio, traditional ruler, the king. They flogged the king of Abo, king of Abavo, king of Onitrubo. What did they do? The Onitrubo case is that when Curid came, they did not bring food and water to them. The Abo case is that when Curid came, he did not attend the court session. Flimsy excuses. And he flogged a king in the presence of his subjects. So the subjects had no option than to gather together and take out Curid. So for their own newspapers to be supporting his execution, it showed that he was also truly high-handed. Okay? Similarly, in the article, this is so thorough. They are quoting articles upon articles to support this claim. And they are the ones writing. Remember, we are not the ones who wrote this. This is British colonial document. Similarly, in an article in the West African Mail of 21st September 1906, headed, The Curid Tragedy and its Sequel, that was the heading, E.D. Morel, a critic of British imperialism, called for an inquiry for the sake of British reputation and for the sake of justice. He regarded the incident as a fight in which Curid lost his life and therefore had nothing to do with any secret society. This writer, Morel, has absolved Ekumeku people of the death of Curid. In what Morel subheaded the facts, he wrote, it was the outcome of the resentment of a primitive people against the upsetting of all their tradition and feelings through gross and sheer misadministration and incompetence. It was due not to any desire on the part of the natives to expel all Europeans from their country, but to anger on the part of the tribe of the natives that being incorporated by administrative decisions in a district whose capital was the town of another tribe, with whom the first tribe had been at war for generations. Wonderful. Wonderful. This man has just opened up something. He has just opened up something. Remember what the British did was to go and capture Benin and made their head Benin. So when they even carried the body of Curid, they transported it to Benin. Now, they are stating here, this particular writer, this journalist is saying that the people of this area, he's referring to Abavo, Abo, Owa, Awashuku, Ubuluku, that they are angry that the British have made Benin their head, especially those in Abo, while they have been at war with Benin and they do not bow to Benin for a long time, and you have made Benin their head. When something is true, it can only be corroborated. This is the truth we have been stating every time. Abo, Owa, Ibanke, all these places were never under Benin. Never. They have been at war with Benin, as you can read here. It's not me that wrote it. Another criticism came from the Secretary of the Aborigines Protection Society, H.R. Fox-Brown, in a letter to the Earl of Elgin, Secretary of the State of the Colonies. Fox-Brown pointed out the evils of the Southern Nigeria Proclamation, November 15 of the 1903, which regulated the compulsory labor existing under the tribal systems. This proclamation empowered district commissioners and other British colonial officers to exact with or without payment labor for public purposes, including the clearing of rivers and repair of roads. After reviewing the causes that led to the death of Curid, he appealed to the Secretary of State for the speedy amendment of the policy, which experience appears to have shown to be necessary in the interest alike of Europeans seeking commercial advantage from relations with the natives and of the natives themselves. These people were enforcing labor on the natives and collecting levies from them as well. One of the things that it is believed here that angered the natives to start fighting against the colonial system. Please double tap on this video to give it thumbs up. This video is almost staying for an hour now, and we are moving to the Onitsha axis. This is just a way of busting the lies of the many people who say we are not Igbo, we are Igbo. This report is centered, he said, Igbo land. Igbo land is I-B-O-L-A-N-D, and you will expect it this way because the British doesn't have GB in their alphabet. The letter B is not in the British alphabet. So you will not expect to see Igbo land. You will see Igbo land. And that is what is written here. He said Igbo land, a century of contact. That is what is written here. Igbo land, a century of contact. And in this Igbo land, we have discussed Abo, Owa, Abavo. These are core places that you will hear some people ranting that they are not Igbo. Now we have discussed Awashuku, Onitsha, another community where you will see some fools ranting that they are not Igbo. There's one they call a Homioto Homina. It's like a nickname that people gave to him because of his usual rants. Some of them will say, oh, this is just a 1906 document. Do you have any other document older than 1902? If you have any document older than 1902, bring, I will also read. This is 1902. Perhaps one of the oldest documents I've laid my hands on. One of the oldest I've laid my hands on. And so I will say, okay, British cannot define who we are for us. Really? You think they just came and started writing? And they are not writing your history here. They are telling you about what you did to them. So they are writing in anger. When somebody is writing in anger, they usually say the truth. I've documented all of you as Igbo and you're saying you are not Igbo. Now the Onitsha axis. After a series of confidential dispatches, Sir Walter Egerton, the High Commissioner of Southern Nigeria, received the approval of the Secretary of the State for the Colonies. Now, we're trying to read how they moved on to Onitsha axis. And we are proceeding. We are proceeding. It says, after a series of confidential dispatches, Sir Walter Egerton, the High Commissioner of Southern Nigeria, received the approval of the Secretary of the State of the Colonies to attack the people of the Niger, that is, in the area of the Ogrugu/Anambra River and Monaco in the Niger. The battle was scheduled to commence in November and conclude in March of the following year, 1905. The timing coincided with the oil season, which upset the agents of the European trading firms. In the past, when the trading season was disturbed as a result of expeditions, they had passed protest resolutions against the pacificatory work of the government. Unlike in previous ventures, the objectives were spelled out of considerable detail. First, to ensure the safety of the Niger Company's trade at Ogrugu. The people who in the habit of molesting Hausa and Yoruba traders and levying tolls on the principal trade routes. Second, to bring under control all the towns east of Anambra River and south of Onitsha, where human sacrifice, cannibalism, and twin killing still went on. Third, to destroy Okajuju, called Abala, consulted mostly by the riverine people engaged in witchcraft disputes. Fourth, to establish a post, possible at Oka, at the termination of the expedition. Fifth, to insist on the surrender of all guns in both friendly and hostile towns. Sixth, to bring to reason the disaffected towns on the Owerri-Bende Road. And seventh, to feed off the land wherever active operations were being conducted and to pay for all supplies where the atmosphere was friendly. Look at the plan. Before coming to Igbo land, these people had a plan. They even had a plan of where they will make their head. Oka. So Oka is not a capital today by accident. They had already planned it out, the British government. So whoever made Oka the capital of Anambra State did not make a mistake. Some people say Oka was nowhere. Oka was just a small bush until they made it a capital. Look at Oka here mentioned as a place they had already planned to make the head, to make the capital. You heard when I read it. They said, fourth, to establish a post. That is a post. A post is like their colonial post, their headquarters. To establish a post, possibly at Oka. So they had Oka in mind. Now let's continue. But you see how they have already shared Igbo land. They even have a plan, including places like Calabar, where today you will also hear them saying, we are not Igbo, we are Ibibio. Look at you being mentioned here. How they will dock in Onitsha and then face Calabar where they feel there is a killing of twins. These people had a plan. They had a plan how they will destroy all the places they called Okujuju, Abala, all the Oka Juju. The Oka Juju is a shrine in Oka called Abala. I'm not from Oka, so I don't know this Juju they are targeting here now, that when they get to Oka, they will attack that shrine. These are people's worship centers, similar to somebody attacking the church today or the mosque today. That is what these people have planned to do. This is what they came to Igbo land with. And then when they come, we will embrace them. We will not embrace them now. So when they start shouting that Ndi Igbo attack them, Ndi Igbo are deviant, they are hostile. We are not hostile. Look at the plan they had. 7 points agenda. 7 of coming to Igbo land. None of them is for the good of Ndi Igbo. All of them is how they will come and attack Igbo land. How they will go to Oka and destroy their Abala. How they will go to Calabar and stop so thing. That one is anyway good because after all, it wasn't a good thing killing twins. It is their culture, but they had it in mind to go and stop it. These things will meet with resistance. That is how nature is. There's no way you will go for such things and you will not meet resistance. You will definitely meet resistance. So let's continue. In a different but equally detailed memorandum of instruction to political officers, Sir Walter Egerton defined the aims of wars treatment of conquered people, and the role of the government in relation to them. A few extracts from the memorandum are here illuminating. Let me read a few lines from the memorandum that Sir Walter Egerton issued out to people who were going to Oka, to Onitsha. Then they will move to Oka, to all the places they mentioned. Political officers should bear in mind that the main object in sending military patrols into disaffected areas is to effect such a change in feelings and attitude of the natives, as well as facilitate the future administration of such areas by district officers with the ordinary civil chief without danger to themselves. It should be remembered that in the past, it has often happened that natives, on the advent of a force, professed their willingness to do what was required of them in the future without any intention of carrying out their promises. The old state of affairs, returning on the departure of the force, necessitating another visit and extra expense in order to bring about their complete submission. Political officers, therefore, who are responsible for the imposition of terms of submission should endeavor to gauge as accurately as possible the real feelings of the natives with whom they are dealing, bearing in mind the difficulties which are likely to be met by district officers coming after them. Undue leniency on such occasion is apt to be misconstrued by the natives as weakness. This is their plan. These people didn't come by accident. They sat down, they made a plan, and they moved. They said when they come with force, people will usually agree to their terms, and then after a while, we will strike again. That they are not going to do that, and that they will not be lenient, because their leniency is always judged by us as weakness. Therefore, they will not be lenient. They will come with force. That's that is what they have written here. They won't be lenient because their leniency is usually judged as weakness. And they also have a plan. Now, the aim of coming is to come and administer the place. So, when you hear people saying Igbos don't have leaders, what they have is warrant chiefs. British gave them warrant chiefs. They don't have a leader. We are Republicans. I laugh. Every community has its own leadership, whether it's by gerontocracy or by primogeniture. Igbo practice gerontocracy. So the Diokpala is usually the leader, except for communities that have OB. So their aim of coming now is to come and ensure that they disrupt that process and then give us a district officer who will be leading us. That is what they have written here. So then look at I'm going to read out the list of people they sent. So instructed, Major H.D. Morehouse, the commanding officer, left Asaba on 17th of November 1904 with the following column. 1. Staff Officer, Lieutenant O.V. Fox. Political Officer, Mr. W.X. Boyle, District Commander. Artillery. The artilleries are Sergeant Major Clare, 15 gunners, 15 people with guns, 31 gun carriers, 12.95 millimeter gun is what they have. Company C went with Captain H.R. Elliott, Lieutenant P.X. Vassal, Color Sergeant Francis, and 122 rank and file officers. Company E went with Lieutenant J. Whaling, Lieutenant H.L. Helme, 65 rank and file. Company F went with Captain C.E. Heathcote, Sergeant Reed, 65 rank and file, 2 Maxim guns. H.M. Douglas, District Commissioner of Owerri, joined the column as political officer on 25th of February 1904. This is how Onitsha was invaded with the hope of capturing Oka, Onitsha, all the axis around the eastern banks of the river Niger. How do you finish reading all this and you say Igbo land is not one? Look at the people dispatched here. They all came from Asaba down to Onitsha. The one coming from Owerri is coming from Owerri down to Onitsha for the same purpose. They are going to Oka. The column reached Ogrugu. I don't know why they are referring as Ogrugu. So, I don't know where they are referring as Ogrugu. So, which community is this called Ogrugu? Which community are they referring to as Ogrugu? Which community? The column reached Ogrugu on 18th November and proceeded to Adani. So people from this axis, you can tell me these communities, okay? On 24th of November, Morehouse proceeded to Ibawa with 4 sections and 1 maxing gun, while Heathcote and the political officer operated the Adani, Omasi, and Adaba areas. Soon after, the 2 divisions joined up at Adaba to review their strategy. Then on the 10th of December, the force proceeded to Umunem under Vassal, that's Colonel Vassal, and after half to Umudim under Morehouse. After 4 days, both forces reconcentrated at Amadim, and since no opposition was encountered, the entire column left Amadim on 17th December. Attention was then turned to the towns lying between Ogrugu and Onsoka. A sub-column under Welling commanded moved to Ebenebe, where another, commanded by Morehouse, left to Ubene. On meeting unexpectedly, stiff resistance and 2 commanders met at Achala on 20th December for consultation. From there, Heathcote marched to Aguleri. These people, marched to Aguleri, while Morehouse engaged the people of Achala and Umuleri. When the opposition became untenable, the whole column assembled at Umuleri on 31st of December to replan. The column entered Aguleri on 9th of January 1905, and to facilitate operations, it was again subdivided, half moving to Umudioka and the rest to Enugu. Once in the area of Oka, the surrounding towns of Obunike, Oba, and Nnewi were involved. With the latter town as a base, the column split into different directions, and from 28th of January to 18th of March 1905, visited nearly all the towns in Oka-Owerri districts, returning to Owerri on the 18th. According to official reports, there were only 3 incidents at Obupa on the 1st of December 1904 at Enugu and 8th of January 1905 at Amogo, and on 21st of January, 10,284 rifles and cap guns were reported surrendered. But the report is silent on what became of those guns. One suspects an exaggeration of the quantity of weapons surrendered by the people in these military encounters. Look at the number of guns surrendered. They say it was the Europeans that gave us guns. We didn't know what was called gun until the Europeans came. Now it is the Europeans that came and recovered guns from us. And these guns, 10,000 plus, were recovered around Oka. So when you see a gun today and they say it's Oka made, you wonder how. Because the Oka people have been making metals. We have been making metals. Civilization did not come with Europeans to Igbo land. We have been civilized way before we had contact with them. Ibuku artifact speaks to that fact. Ledger, iron smelting site, speaks to that fact. The stone tools at Ugwele during the Stone Age speak to that fact. Ndị Igbo have been civilized. They have experienced civilization and globalization of their cultural practices through priesthood before contact with the Europeans. When people say it was the Europeans that taught us how to do some things, how did the same Europeans recover 10,000 plus guns, 10,284 guns from Igbo land? Not just Igbo land, this is just an Oka axis. The earlier accounts that I read, you heard them saying that they were attacked heavily in Abo, in Ubuluku. For 3 months, they fought between Iseluku and Ubuluku. 3 months of heavy fighting. Curid was unalived at Owa. All these things happened in Igbo land. I'm reading document of 1902. Reports of what happened. Igbo land, a century of contact. That is the document I'm reading. Documented by Professor S.N. Wabar, a renowned professor of history. And these are colonial documents. Civilization did not come to Ndi Igbo from the hands of any European. Please, if this is your first time of coming across our video, you can do us a favor by subscribing to our channel. If this is also your first time of coming across our video, you can give us thumbs up. If what we are doing interests you, you can also drop a comment, share this video, and let us know what you think. Okay, so let's continue. We are now at Awashuku. We have moved from Onitsha. These are Igbo land. For the people that say, we are not Igbo, we are not Igbo, we are Anyoma, we are Enuani. There's no mention of the word Anyoma here. Sorry. It's all Igbo land. Okay? There's no mention of even Enuani here. It's all Igbo land. They only mention you by the name of your community. Anyoma is not mentioned here. Igbo land is what they are treating. And this is Igbo land I'm reading. Igbo land is what I'm reading to you here now, not Anyoma. There's no Anyoma here anymore. There was no Anyoma. For the few young people who are misguided, because of the quest for the creation of Anyoma state, they are beginning to rant, we are not Igbo, we are Anyoma. There's no Anyoma here now. So Anyoma came much later as an acronym. There was no mention of Eka here as well, or Enuani, or Okwani. Just the communities are mentioned. Just the communities are mentioned. So we are now at Awashuku. And we're looking at the Awashuku expeditions of November 1900 to May 1910. So it took 10 years of expedition around Awashuku. 10 whole years. November 1900 to May 1910. Around 10 years of expedition in Awashuku. When they say British expedition, you hear us think it's Benin. They will just say primitive expedition of Benin, where they now packed artifacts. They were able to pack artifacts because Benin was conquered. The artifacts of my community was not touched. And we had artifacts. Fine artifacts. I wish I can just show you some in pictures. We have artifacts, just like the Benin people have. Once older than Benin. They were not touched. They were the same artifacts Obasanjo ordered for to use during the first tax 77. But let's focus on what we are doing. We are now at Awashuku. Please, kindly, Biko, I don't know how they say it so that you will do it. Double tap on this video to give it thumbs up so that it can rank well on the algorithm. We just have 12 people liking the video, and as far as I know, we've had more than 70 something people actively watching this video. So why not double tap on the video to give it thumbs up? Or is it because it's not a religious program? This is history. History doesn't change things. So it is something that has passed. But what it does is to give you a sense of dignity. Dignity feeds your soul. When you know the greatness you're coming from. This is our ancestors over 150 years ago. and people attacked them with sophisticated weapons and trainings, and they were able to resist them for 32 years plus. That is what I'm reading to you. I'm not reading what we wrote about what happened. I'm reading the lion's account. They say if until the antelopes begin to have a writer, the story will always favor the lion. The hunter will always have the story to tell. What I'm reading here is the hunter's account. The British account is what I'm reading here. And it still has some praises for us. Wait till I read our own account, because I'm going to read Professor Elizabeth Isiche's own too. But that is our own account. Now I'm reading the British people's account first. That is for today. Okay? So let's proceed to Awashuku. Previous attempts to suppress the Ekumeku society appear to have been futile, as there were further disturbances by the society in 1909 to 1910. It was also responsible for the disturbances in the Abo district in 1906. This time, it was alleged that the society had blocked trade routes and destroyed the government rest house, as well as buildings belonging to the Roman Catholic mission. When they tell you that the church and the missionaries were together, say no, they were not together. It's different people. The church came with the gospel of Jesus Christ. The missionaries came to subdue us. They were together. Look at the things they stated now that the Ekumeku people did, that they are attacking their church because they came with religion. It is with that religion that they came to try to tone you down, to tell you that you should be calm and peaceful. When somebody slaps you, turn the other side, they slap you again. Our culture says when somebody slaps you here, you machete the person's head away. Not you turn the other side of your face. When somebody slaps you here, you turn the other side. Eh? What if you turn the other side and they wire you and you don't wake up again? What will you tell your God? So they came with religion. And one of the things they have listed here now is that the Ekumeku people are disturbing their missionaries. Okay? It's not me that said, oh, it's their document that is saying it. They are talking about the Roman Catholic mission here. This time, it was alleged that the society, that is Ekumeku, had blocked trade routes and destroyed a government rest house, as well as buildings belonging to the Roman Catholic mission. Under the command of Captain G.N. Sheffield, a number or a company of 4 officers, 1 British non-commissioned officer, and 131 men was dispatched. It carried a maxim. At Awashuku, the company was attacked. And from 2nd November 1909, there was severe fighting when Sheffield attempted to capture the ringleaders. Despite its small size, the company kept its ground, losing only 1 soldier, but failed to capture the ringleaders. The battle for the capture of the ringleaders, fought between 16th of January and April 1910, was severer in that the company lost 7 killed and 15 wounded. It retreated to base. April, Sheffield signaled for reinforcement. A senior officer, a Major Bruce, appeared with 5 officers, 160 men, and 2 Maxims. In the encounter that followed, an officer, Major J.H. Chapman, was killed. Awashuku resisted them such that they called for reinforcement, and 160 arm-bearing men and 2 Maxims were dispatched to Awashuku. And in that show of force, they lost one of their own, Major Chapman, in Awashuku. Despite the arrival of reinforcements and the progress made as a result, the push to subdue the people and bring them under government control was not as fast as expected. A combination of factors unknown to the government was responsible. Internal rivalry between 2 chiefs Nzekwe and Okonjo, each with his supporters, and the Ekumeku Rising. The background to the trouble at Awashuku at this time was completely misunderstood by the government, who saw it as an act of disaffection on the people, on the part of the people. Chief Nzekwe was portrayed as the man causing the disaffection, and he was therefore the man being sought and fought by the government. It was later that the truth was revealed. Now I have to give a little background here. Nzekwe is not a chief. Okonjo is not a chief. When they say chief, they are referring to a king. This is how they insult us, okay? They are referring to our kings as chief. Obi Nzekwe and Obi Okonjo, they were dragging kingship in Awashuku. The government was working with Okonjo, whose children are still the leaders of Awashuku today, okay? The family of Okonjo are still holding the kingship of Awashuku. So Okonjo was working with the government. Nzekwe was not working with the government. So whatever Okonjo tells the government is what they believe about Nzekwe. So let's continue to know what happened. However, the truth came to light with the attachment of the patrol A. Norton Harper as political officer on instructions from the governor, dated 20th of April 1910. Between 30th of April to 3rd of May, he engaged himself in interviewing some friendly Awashuku people and explaining to them the intentions of the government, as well as obtaining information regarding Chief Nzekwe's whereabouts and his bush camps. One of Major Harper's discoveries was that the government interpreter, a Mr. Rotilu, had been a backleg, apparently relaying government information to Chief Nzekwe. He had also prevented people from coming forward to give information on Chief Nzekwe. Not only was report against Rotilu confirmed by many Awashuku people, but on the 4th of May, Chief Okonjo, a sworn enemy, a fact unknown to the government, of Chief Nzekwe, swore an affidavit against the interpreter for preventing him from seeing the OC, officer commanding patrol, when bringing information as to the whereabouts of Nzekwe, who at the time was living in the town of Ekumeku. A charge of blackmail was brought against the interpreter as he was arrested. Efforts were then intensified to destroy Chief Nzekwe and his camps. And that same day, at midnight, a midnight march by the patrol to Aniogo, where his men were reported to be camped, was frustrated by thick darkness and the road being ringed with spiky bushes. The following day, the village was invaded at 11:30 p.m. after a sharp fight in which some important supporters of Chief Nzekwe were killed. The remnants fled. Unfortunately for the patrol, Chief Nzekwe escaped to the nearby village of Anyadike, where a surprise attack was launched and casualties inflicted, but the chief escaped again. Between 9 and 10 May, the troops ran short of supplies and were put on half rations. On the 11th, a surprise swoop was made on Nzekwe's camp in the bush, but yet again he managed to escape. On the 12th, the patrol was reorganized into two sub-columns, one at Ogwash and the other at Olo. Olo is a community camp near Ogwash. If you know this axis, you will know the community. Nzekwe's camp at Olo was destroyed by the sub-column under Major Whaling. A meeting of the Olo elders was warned against concealing whereabouts of Chief Nzekwe. On the 15th, information revealed to the patrol the existence of enemy camps at Aniofo, Abedi, Anioputa, and Azungu. all of which were set up and manned by members of the Ekumeku society from all parts of the districts. These camps were attacked and destroyed. Following the destruction of the camps and the resulting dispersal of the Ekumeku ringleaders, the people became less afraid to talk, and so the political officer was enlightened about the true political situation in Awashuku. Chief Okonjo was reported to be not only in possession of a government 303 carbine and ammunition, but also in collusion with Rotilu, the former interpreter, against whom he had sworn an affidavit of disloyalty to government. Chief Okonjo was sentenced on various charges relating to the former offense to 10 months imprisonment and a fine of £10. As regards the later accusation, Okonjo, with the support of the interpreter, blackmailed the people with his ability to call in the white man to defeat his enemies. And in the event of any other chief having become prominently friendly with the government, he had blackmailed, and if payment was refused, a charge would be trumped up against him. For example, Chief Okonjo Odowane, no, Chief Odowane, sorry. For example, Chief Odowane, I'm sure they are trying to say Odoziani here, who had been imprisoned on information brought by Okonjo for being anti-government, was released on the confession of Okonjo himself that the information was false. So Okonjo was giving out wrong information to the government to arrest people that he feels were his political opponents, or people who do not support his kingship, or people who he doesn't like. Anybody who was against him, he will give wrong information to the government concerning that person, and the government will help him to take out his enemies. Now, this particular person, Odowane, who he had given, accused and given false testimonies against, was in prison. And upon his own confession again, the man was released. So Okonjo, as it is here, doesn't have a good reputation. This is not to slight the family, because this is their great-great-great-great-grandfather. But history can be very cruel. Of course, the Okonjo family is a very well-respected family in Nigeria and the world at large today. But this is this is how history can be. It can be very cruel. It is not something you paint. This is a colonial document, not written by me, published by the British colonial government. And it's talking about the lifestyle of a certain king called Okonjo, who was considered a very cunning and disloyal person, a chameleon. So I continue reading. The truth about Chief Okonjo, the truth about Chief Nzekwe then dawned on the government. The political officer reported that originally Nzekwe had no desire or intention to rebel or defy the government, but was, in quote now, driven into his present position by his enemy, Okonjo, and his native lawyer. It has been, and still is in parts, a matter of universal belief that the lawyer sent the soldiers to help Okonjo, and his belief has been steadily fostered by Okonjo for his own ends. The war began as a fight for the chieftaincy. Nzekwe and his followers versus Okonjo, the lawyer and the soldiers. On the other, it has now degenerated into an Ekumeku rising. For some, they believe that this started as a kingship tussle between Okonjo family and Nzekwe family of Awashuku. Okay? But that wasn't it. This is just the Awashuku version of the story. Chief Nzekwe might have been killed. That is what this newspaper headline reports. Okay? The imprisonment of Rotilu and Okonjo won the fight for the patrol, because on 19th May, all the disaffected villages in the district offered their friendship to the government. On the 27th May at 1 p.m., Chief Nzekwe appeared. He appeared before Harper at Olo. When ordered to surrender unconditionally, he asked if the lawyers were still in the camp. And when told that he was surrendering to the government, he became afraid because he then discovered that he had been fighting the government and not Okonjo and his lawyers. He surrendered with his bodyguard of 200 men. Did you hear that? Nzekwe in Awashuku surrendered with a bodyguard of 200 men. I believe they were all armed. This is why when they sing that song, Odogumoki soinazo, Odogumoki soinazo, ayao, Odogumoki soinazo, Odogumoki soinazo, ayao, Odogumeki soinazo, Odogumoki soinazo, ayao, Odogumoki soinazo, Odogumoki soinazo, ayao. 200 men in 1904. What is the population of the entire area then? 200 men were with him when he surrendered. That is like, if I surrender and you don't treat me well, we all perish. When the British sent for reinforcement, they got 160 men. This one is 200 men surrendered with Okonjo. History is very sweet, my brother. 200. Even me, I'm shocked. Because if you ask me to raise 200 loyal men to follow me around now, I can't. Although I have over thousands. Over 16,000 now on my YouTube. 124,000 on Facebook. And on TikTok. In real life, if you are asked to raise 200 men in 1902, it's as good as raising 4,000 men in this modern era. 200 men. Thank you so much, my brother. Around 10,000 men, 200 men to go around with one man in 1902. Ha. That man must be very powerful. Very, very powerful. So let me continue reading this very beautiful history. On 28th of May, a meeting was held between the government officials and the disaffected towns, villages, and quarters. The latter were charged and fines of money were imposed. The chiefs pleaded that the war, as they described it, had left them poor and destitute, and asked that they be allowed to sell their women to pay the fines. This is very sad and painful. So after the war was fought, the British government back there in Europe will be demanding payments because they spent money for this expedition. They have to get their money back. This is what Nigeria has been about. This is what it is still about. It is a business venture. Look at 1906, 1905. They are still asking them to pay them money they spent in buying ammunition. So they have to now tax the communities such that the kings have to gather to say, you just finished devastating our communities. Where do we get money to pay you fines from? Allow us to sell our women. By selling our women there, they mean giving their women out in marriage to raise money. This is very painful and sad. And it is important that you know this history. It may be history, but it is very important that you know it so that it doesn't repeat itself. What history does is to guide you, to know the people you're dealing with. Don't ever get carried away that these people love you. People who could do this to you. You burn down a community. I've read here when they said they burn down AZ, they burn down Awashuku, they burn down this place, and you're still imposing fines on them. When will they raise money to pay that fine? This is really painful. If not that I'm a man reading this, if it's a woman reading this history, she will start crying. The community pleaded that you allow them time to sell their women to pay you. They added that the closure of their market by the government was inimical to their economic recovery. They were therefore promised that a market will be held on the 5th of June. So there has not been market. How will they get money now? Major Bruce shared the feeling of the Awashuku people, knowing the district himself. In a confidential letter to the Secretary of the Southern Provinces, he opposed heavy fines on the following grounds. 1. The town had been impoverished by the fightings. 2. The fines did not fall equally on the various quarters. 3. Though a large town, Awashuku was not rich, had no great resources, while the markets had never been very important, he suggested instead that the people should be employed in making roads, building bridges, and reconstructing the rest houses and the missions they had destroyed. This is very good suggestion, even if it's all going to them as well. Regarding Chief Nzekwe, the political officer had informed the chiefs at the meeting on 28th of May that his case would be settled by higher authorities. On 31st of May, a telegram from the governor directed that Chief Nzekwe should be sent to Lagos. However, by that time, he was seriously sick and confined to bed by a Dr. Rankin, who stated that Nzekwe was suffering from bronchitis and was quite unfit to travel. Nzekwe never did travel to Lagos apparently, because the political officer mentioned that he, together with other chiefs, were doing everything in their power to assist in the resettling of the people. There is no doubt that he impressed the political officer there, who wrote about him in glowing terms to the secretary of the southern provinces. Now I'm going to read the letter they wrote concerning Nzekwe to the head of southern provinces in Lagos. You remember, the head of southern provinces had said that Nzekwe must be brought to Lagos, that his matter will be decided by higher authorities because of the number of people he had killed, and also they saw his influence. Imagine a man who showed up with 200 and something men for negotiation, not numbering the ones that have been killed. But when he eventually turned up, 200 and something came with him. How many do you think are in the bush for 200 to come out? How many do you think are remaining in the bush? People really wielded influence in this life. There are people who have enjoyed influence and fought gallantly for the Igbo cause, who have fought gallantly against colonialism. This colonial resistance struggle I'm reading is not just one of. It is the longest lasting anti-colonial resistance struggle in the history of mankind. It is documented here by the Europeans themselves, the British who were involved. I'm going to read the letter they wrote concerning Nzekwe and then probably end this live stream. If you have not liked this video and you've watched it up to this extent, I'm pleading with you to please, Chizzy, my brother, thank you so much for your contributions here. I didn't really look at the comment section. So the US manipulated them into lobbying them, making Tinubu pay US Army. Okay, thank you. That's a different contribution. So Nzekwe is a man. I'm reading the letter they wrote to Lagos concerning Nzekwe now. Nzekwe is a man of very great power in the district. Everyone kneels to him with a salute, Agu, in bracket lion. He is supreme throughout the south of the Asaba district, and his word is law. He has always been friendly to the government and was undoubtedly driven into the war by Okonjo and the lawyers. His surrender immediately brought the war to a finish. If I may venture to suggest, it would be the most satisfactory solution to the difficulty if Nzekwe is reinstated by the government as head chief in Awashuku. He has already sent messengers throughout the country stating that peace has been declared and that the government is to be obeyed. The result of his message has been extraordinary, and it is, in my opinion, absolutely safe for anyone to travel wherever he wishes throughout the disturbed area. Why? Because Nzekwe has surrendered. The above was forwarded with a telegram to the secretary of the southern provinces, soliciting Nzekwe's reinstatement as the head chief As the following citation shows, my opinion of Nzekwe's case is that the only possible satisfactory solution is his reinstatement as head chief. Nzekwe wields immense power in districts which he is using in government interests. If above suggestion is agreed, I anticipate no further trouble. Hoarsely concurs and telegraphed Commandant Lagos to this effect. No further trouble did occur at Awashuku, at least not in Nzekwe's lifetime. We have come to the end of this particular review of the account of the British expeditions in Igbo land, looking at the Enuani axis and the other axis around Oka, Onitsha, Owerri, and all other areas. Tomorrow or some other time when we are able to come on air, as long as Chukwu Okike Abiama gives us breath, we will look at the account written by our own people, particularly none other than Professor Elizabeth Isichei, the wife of late Professor Peter Isichei, who is from Asaba. Professor Elizabeth Isichei is a New Zealander who is married to an Igbo man from Asaba. And she has been our wife since the early 70s. Her children speak Igbo. She was a professor in an Igbo university in University of Nigeria and Soka before returning to her home state. In fact, her children used to make mockery of her that she is more popular in Igbo land than she is in New Zealand. Tomorrow, I'll be reviewing the works of Professor Elizabeth Isichei on the Ekumeku Resistance, especially as it affects the Enuani communities. Thank you so much for watching this video to this very moment. I'm calling on you to please, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, this is the best time for you to do it. Hit the subscribe button. You will also find our WhatsApp phone number on our bio if you wish to send us a message. If you want to reach out to us, if you also want to support our work, you can give us super thanks here in this video. Comment on the video and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment as well. I will see you in our next video. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm going to read out some of the comments before I close the video. Nicholas says hi. Nicholas, how are you? Thank you so much. It's nice to have you on board. Cheesy, I have appreciated you since. Thank you so much. Thank you. Blessing, it's nice to have you on board. Thank you so much. History is very, very good. If you do well, that is why some people try to scrap history from our curriculum, because they don't have a good history. If you have a good history, you have nothing to worry about. They want to remove history because people will get to learn about their nonsense. But whether history is taught in schools or not, people who have the interest will continue to research history. But it is very good if it is taught. Joan, how are you doing? Person saying slapping is common assault, which is a less offensive attack and equal to spitting. Turn the other side does not actually mean a real slap. Thank you so much. God bless you. Ogurugu in general, Nsoka senatorial zone. Okay, wow, I didn't know that. Thank you so much. I really needed to know where it's called Ogurugu because I thought it was the name of a community. I mean, I have heard the name of Ogurugu village before from my old late father. It is the British that are writing all these things. They know everywhere. They know everywhere. So the people that are now coming out to deny their identity, they are just a laughing stock. Like I said the other day, they are making a mockery of themselves. A mockery, huge mockery of themselves. They are not mocking in Igbo by denying your Igbo identity. You can deny it, but you can't tell me who you are. You can tell me who you are. If I know who you are, and I know you are deceiving yourself, I'll just be laughing. It's just like the few people who came out before 2023 general election and said they are Igbo people, campaigned with the mandate of Igbo. And then today they are saying they are not Igbo because they want to create a new state. You're making yourself a laughing stock. There is so much to life beyond politics, beyond leadership, beyond money, beyond fame. There is more to life. What will you be remembered for? As somebody who had identity crisis? There are people who are suffering from the same identity crisis today, even kings. Let me not spoil this video by bringing their topics in. Thank you so much. I doff my heart for you. Thank you for watching this video to this very moment. I'm going to end the live stream. If you have not yet liked the video, please double tap on the video to like it. What you're doing is helping the video to rank well on the YouTube's algorithm. Thank you, and do have a very pleasant day. I'm going offline now. I will see you in my next video. Bye.